You are now listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Podcast.
Welcome to Ride With Me, episode 119. Today, September 15, 2024. Yes, I am recording a Sunday episode, you guys. My kids have been taking up my Fridays, Saturdays, Thursdays, Mondays, Wednesdays, all those days of the week. So yes, I will be handing you guys a Sunday episode. And today's guest is my new friend, Jessie.
Hey, how are ya?
I'm good, Jessie. This is the first time that Jessie and I actually speak on the phone. I met her on TikTok on Thursday, was it?
It was Thursday, and it was a very quick bonding of a friendship,
Right.
and I'm really excited to be here.
So I went on, I've been saying it for years. I make my new, at first I'll tell you because you haven't been on the podcast. I got my friends on the podcast multiple times where I ran out of friends. So I find them on TikTok. And so I went on Jessie's live. She was on live, and what caught my attention was her little when you go on someone's live, they'll have like, be respectful, donate gifts, or keep it clean. I believe yours says something about your story. I can't remember. It was one sentence, something about
I think it's like here to tell my life story.
exactly. That caught my attention. I'm like, okay, well, why? Because that's what I do on the podcast. I catch people's stories. And some are great, some are painful, some make people cry, but we're here to share, right? And so, like I said, her live caught my attention, so I invited her on the podcast, and that was just a couple days ago. Let's get to know Jessie. Jessie, you said you live in California?
Yeah, I'm currently in Palm Springs. I've been kind of couch hopping for the past few years. It's been amazing. Palm Springs is very, very hot though. Really hot, too hot.
Yeah, no, my wife has an aunt that lives in Palm Springs, and she invites us. I guess she said, well, we haven't gone, but she said that back in the day, they used to put these big blocks of ice in the pool because it would get that hot. These really big,
That makes sense.
yeah, like these
Mhm.
really big, like the ones you see the raspados guys making raspados or out of them. Yeah, they would drop these big, massive blocks of ice into the pool because it was that hot. And we've only been out there once. We drove through it a couple of times, but we've only stopped there once. It does get pretty hot.
I remember the pool that we have outside. We can't even go in it sometimes because it gets too hot.
Okay, well, now you know. Blocks of ice. How are you dealing with the smoke, fires, and all that good stuff? Are you guys affected by the
It's
smoke?
a little bit. We definitely smell it. It's a little foggy and smoggy out here, but my friends are getting the brunt of it. They're a lot closer, so I've been keeping up with them, making sure they're safe.
Well, yeah, we were getting hit. I think Thursday. We can
Mhm.
see the San Gabriel Valley fires literally right here outside our window.
Oh.
So that was on Wednesday. I believe we had all the smoke ash on our cars, and
Mm.
then that Wednesday afternoon, we kind of got like a little breeze where it's blowing the wind's blowing towards the mountains. So the next morning, it was like there's no fire, but you would look to the north and you would see this massive cloud of smoke. And yeah, it wasn't as
Oh,
bad this
wow.
weekend, but it was pretty bad. You can see the fires from space. You can see the smoke. There's showed a video and everything, but it's crazy. California is. I don't know what more is there to burn. We have fires every year. So
Definitely.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, definitely something that shocks me because every single year there's a new fire in a new area.
Exactly. And then some of these are like way up there where there's no one up there. So I know I heard the one in San Bernardino was set on purpose. I'm not sure about the one in Orange County or the one right here in our mountains, but California is I don't know how many more mountains is there to burn. So what got you? I believe you said you're not from California.
So I was born in Northern California, but I was raised in Colorado. So I moved to
Oh,
Colorado when I was like 3 years old.
like I said, I don't know much about you. We just met on Thursday.
It's okay.
So Colorado, so you Northern California, then you went to Colorado. How long were you in Colorado for?
Oh, my, pretty much my entire life. I moved back out to California when I was like 19. So my entire life I was in Colorado, Parker, Colorado to be exact.
Okay. And then when you landed in Palm Springs, how many years ago?
Oh gosh, so that was actually not even years ago, probably 8 months ago.
Oh, it's just recent.
I was living with another friend. Yeah, I
Oh,
was living with another friend, and I wasn't supposed to be with him for about a year. It was only supposed to be like a 3 months to get back on my feet. And then finally, he's like, "I love you, but I need my space back."
yeah. You gotta
Yep.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still great friends. We hang out a lot, but yeah, I had to
Yeah.
jump over to Palm Springs.
Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with like I mean it's boundaries, it's okay. I mean it's like I tell people stuff like, hey man, sorry. My buddies get mad at me because I'm like, hey, I go to bed at 7:30. They call me at 7:31. Hey, you didn't answer your phone. I told you I go to bed at 7:30. They're like really on the dot. I'm
I
like,
am out.
yeah, on the dot. Phone gets turned off and I'm out. No, sorry. Because I do wake up every morning at 3:30 in the morning. So you go to bed at 7:30 doesn't mean you fall asleep exactly at 7:30. You still toss and turn for a little bit.
Exactly.
So, okay, so
But to get up at 3, you have to be at bed then.
yeah. And I'm not getting any younger, so the more sleep I get, the better. So,
I feel that.
yeah, so right now you're staying, like you have your own apartment or renting or,
So I'm ish renting with a friend right now, but yeah, I'm staying with a friend in an apartment. Pretty soon, I'm hoping to get a job to help pay for stuff. So right now, I just help with the food from the money I get from lives or from other handy jobs that I do. And I pretty much clean the heck out of this place.
oh no, that's the one thing that's like when you have a roommate that doesn't really clean after themselves, it gets stressful. I recently, no, I not say recently, maybe like about a year ago, I had to tell a roommate, hey, dude, you gotta go, dude. You gotta go, man. So
I mean, if I'm pretty much staying here almost rent free while I'm looking for a job, the least I can do is keep the place clean.
exactly, exactly. And so you're in Palm Springs, age. Obviously you're not married since you're renting a room, right?
Yeah,
Not
I'm
that
not
not
even
not
sure.
that
Like,
not
I'm,
that anybody who rents a room is not allowed to be married. Just saying.
you're good, you're good.
Again,
I definitely want.
I just met her on Thursday, guys.
It is totally fine. We pretty much have like the whole introduction of myself and each other to get through, but I'm planning on getting married if I meet the right person. But right now, I have to focus on my mental health because of everything that I've been through and just getting out of it about 3 years ago. I need to get myself in a healthy and a healthy, stable place so I'm able to be a healthy, stable person for someone else.
Right. And you know what? I have a friend that he was in the army. I think he was Marine maybe, and he for a long time he told himself he did not want until he can clean his mind and from everything he saw, he wouldn't see himself with someone because he wasn't ready. So, and he's already in his mid 30s and he's like he's thinking about himself. He's not being selfish. So he's making sure he doesn't, affect whoever he gets with because of his mental health.
And that's probably one of the least selfish things that someone could do. I wish I knew that before. I definitely tried to get with someone about a year, half ago, almost 2 years. And I was not like, I was on the verge of being healthy. Like, I understood everything, but I didn't get everything like in practical application. And I tried getting with someone and it went south so fast because I didn't understand like love bombing. I didn't understand manipulation. I didn't understand gaslighting or rage baiting. And rage baiting is due to my past is one of the things I fall to the most. And yeah, now I'm just like, I'm going to go straight mental health and friendships. That is it.
Uh, I mean, I did the same thing. I left a very very toxic relationship back in the day, and I didn't date for like almost what 2 years. I'm like, no, I need this to myself. I need to do this for myself. I mean, especially back then, I already had kids, so my focus was my kids. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's like I'm not gonna put myself in multiple relationships and end up having horrible relationships. And I mean, at one point, some people wouldn't even meet my kids. I would just, keep them to myself. I don't know if this person's gonna be around for a while or not. So there's people that didn't even meet my kids to this day. So it's all good. It's all good. But I believe you said. Let me see what else. I'm gathering what I got from you. I mean, you also look very young. I mean,
Yeah, I'm 31 right now. My birthday is in April, so I have a birthday coming up kind of soonish, but not too soonish. I wish my birthday was in October though. That'd be a lot cooler, but it's not.
I think I have the coolest birthday ever. Just saying.
Ooh,
I
let
ce-
me know, which is it?
I celebrated with this guy.
That is awesome.
The Rock. I celebrate my birthday with The Rock. So I'm very proud of that. My kids are like, okay, Dad. All right, dude, we get it. Whatever. I think my oldest son celebrates it with Tom Brady. I'm like, get out of here, dude. Get out of here. Get out of here.
So you want to know something interesting about birthdays?
Go for it.
So I was born April 18th. My dad was born April 18th, and my mom was born April 21st. Well, adoptive parents. So I grew up with us having something called the birthday weekend, where we would just celebrate all of our birthdays together. I kind of liked it, but there was a huge part of me that like felt like I never had my own moment. But it was something that was like interesting that all of us had birthdays in the same like little area.
We have, I think, maybe 4 or 5 individuals in my family, meaning brothers and mom and everything. I think 4 or 5 of us are born on the second of the month.
That is so cool.
And then my
Oh, nice.
yeah, and then my brother, my boys are 18 months apart to the T. So on February 6th, it's one of their birthday. On August 3rd, it's literally 6 months later. August 3rd, and then so like the February 2nd, February 6th, right? Take away, you divide the 6 by 2, it's 3, right?
Mm,
My son's born August
mm.
3rd. And then one of them was born at 6:44 in the afternoon, and one of them was born at 12:22. So you divide the 6:44, multiply the 12, whatever, to twice, whatever. Anyways, the math is there. Everything's by 2. And yeah,
That is actually really cool.
they're pretty much literally everything's right down the middle with them. And like I said, every 6 months there's a birthday party. For those of you that I confuse the hell out of you, you're more than welcome to hit me up on Instagram, and I'll explain the story again. I'll write the math out for you guys. So, I mean, siblings. I mean, how any siblings? We can get to it.
So, in my birth family, I am one of 12 of 13 children.
We had
So
we had
I am one of the
12.
youngest.
We had 12.
Nice, nice. And then in my adopted family, I grew up with just Chad, but a few years ago, my family adopted another son, Ben, into the family. So with my adopted family, I have 2 brothers.
Okay, so you have a total like 15 siblings.
Pretty much, yeah.
15 siblings. So you want to start with let's see. You want to start with the biological family first of your conversation?
I guess because really that's just the smallest part of my life. It's
Yeah.
my adopted family that was the bigger. But I was born in Northern California. The story that my parents gave me is that my birth parents were homeless. They did give birth to me in a hospital, but then we went straight back to the streets. We were living in a car until the government took that away. I was abused in probably almost every single way. And when they did finally adopt me, they said that I had cigarette burns all over my body. And I was adopted when I was right under 2 years old. And I went from a very, very poor family to a very, very wealthy family. And that is actually why one of my mottos is wealthy isn't always healthy, because people like to think, oh, you're a rich girl, your life was so easy. And it's like, actually, they use their money to cover up everything they did to me.
Oh my
So,
God. So I guess that's the main topic, right?
you know,
Sorry, the cigarette burns really got to me. My son, when I moved out of my from living with the mother of my kids, I picked up my son one day. He was like maybe just barely turned 1. Yeah, barely just turned 1, and he had a cigarette burn on his hand, and that pissed me the hell off.
I'm
Oh,
so sorry.
that pissed me the hell off. I think he still has a little scar, and he's already 15. But yeah, no, well, I have full custody, so I mean, there's a reason why. Um, I, I
Mm,
had to at one point tell myself I have to let things happen because it ended up being in my favor at the end. So I have full custody of my kids, and
that's fantastic.
I also got full custody of a daughter that wasn't biologically mine. So I've raised her since she was 4 months old. So when the boys came, she came too. Now that she's an adult, she's wherever she lives
Mm.
at now. So, but yeah, that one kind of hurt. So you had multiple cigarette burns. Fuck.
Yeah, that's what they told me, apparent. So my birth mom is extremely abusive, and my dad, I don't know exactly what words I'm allowed to say, but he's a pedo, and he definitely has touched every single one of his children. So that was one reason why my parents were like, "Oh, we have to get you away," because there was a case that was against him, and my birth mom still denies it, still is on his side, even though most, if not all, of the children are no contact with them.
Son of a bitch. No, you can say whatever you want to say.
Okay, I just
I'm not
want
gonna
I wanted
stop
to.
you from saying whatever word you need to get off your chest. That's what this podcast is for. Um, yeah, I'm kind of like I'm speechless. But so you obviously know who those people are. I'm gonna call them those people now.
You are good. Yes. So, funny enough, one of my younger brothers, Tyler, I've been trying to find my birth family for like years. I would do anything from Google searches to DNA tests to this to try and find them. And then my younger brother decided to give me my younger sister's birth certificate. And with that, the middle name, I was able to go down like pretty much a CIA like little searchy rabbit hole. I found my grandma, and through my grandma, I found my mom. And then we started talking, which helped me find other people in my family. I very, very quickly realized how unstable a lot of them were, and I've cut off all of them except for my younger brother and one of my sisters. Everyone else, especially with me trying to get healthier, I can't be in contact with them. But I still think it was cool being able to find them in like 3 minutes or probably like 3 hours after I found my little sister's middle name. Which, rest in peace, she did die, but
Oh shit.
I wish it didn't happen. But they didn't have the money to be able to get her the help that she needed. I think if I'm not mistaken, it was cancer. So
And how old was your
I
sister?
wish I could have seen her. She was about 3 years younger than me, so 28, 29.
Shit, that sucks. I'm sorry for that.
It's okay. I wish I could have helped her. When I first met her, I tried, but I kind of knew that anyone who grew up with my birth family they would have issues in very different ways than I did with my adoptive family, but the issues were since no one believed them about the abuse, and it was the parents going hella hardcore on my mom, saying that they're lying. My mom destroyed the whole family. One of my sisters, she says she can't talk to her because um, her mom was like, "Hey, just to let you know, if you lie about your dad again, I'm going to make sure that you feel the pain that he felt physically." And so when she realized
Holy
that, she was like,
shit. Damn.
"Yeah."
Damn. I'm starting to think my life wasn't that bad. No offense.
No, you are good. Everyone's trauma is definitely trauma. And I never like doing the whole someone's life is worse than someone else's,
Yeah.
because especially when I tell people, I'm like, really look at the both choices that I had: abusive mom, pedo dad, 12 siblings, poor, or pretty wealthy family. And then went to conversion therapy, was pretty much Stockholm syndrome, all of these things. So it really, you can have a hell of a life
So
anywhere you go.
I have a feeling you struggle with trigger. You have multiple triggers that you still struggle with till this day.
Yes. One of the main ones, which really, really sucks, is therapy itself. Because of the therapy that I went through when I was a kid, I thought that what was therapy was.
Yeah.
So my entire life, I was anti-therapy. I was like, how dare therapy exist? It is the worst thing on the planet. And I was actually trying to get rid of
Yeah.
it. One of the reasons why I kind of got sucked into Scientology, because they're exact opposites
Right.
of therapy. And now that I realize what therapy is and I realize what attachment therapy is, I've seen the exact difference. And I'm just like, oh, therapy works. It's that's a therapy cult. That's what that is.
Right.
So
Well, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that. No, I
yeah,
myself
sorry.
I myself still struggle with triggers. I mean, some of them can be so stupid. Like I hate being late. I hate my car, only putting $10 of gas in it. Nope, I gotta fill that son of a bitch. There's just like this is the recent one. The recent one, my wife, she told me something, and I took it as she's calling me a liar, and I kind of lost my shit. And that's the one trigger that I haven't been able to shake off. And somebody recently told me that I needed to work on that, and I was like, because when someone starts making accusations or starts questioning me, it can just be a simple fucking question that I take it as you're blaming me, right? It's like I get defensive. So I was thinking about it the other day. It was like, you know what? I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? I want to do a podcast episode about my triggers, about that. And you know what? And I came across you, and I'm like, okay, this can blend into the conversation. So I think it started when I was like maybe sixth grade. So we're talking 1994, 1995, where I need to get to school, and I'm being accused of, oh, you're only going to school for your friends. And I was like, but I want to go learn, and then it got worse in the 7th grade, where I missed a lot of school in the 7th grade because I so-called only wanted to go to school for my friends. And it got to the point where the police and the child services got involved, and like, hey man, if this kid doesn't go to school, we're going to have to place you under arrest, meaning biological mother. And so 8th grade wasn't as bad, but it got worse when I was in high school. By then, I think we had like, maybe I was taking care of like 8 of my siblings. And yeah, I changed half my siblings' diapers. I was at maybe 6 years old when I changed the first diaper. And what do you call it? So I remember one day, my mother did not allow me to go to school. She wanted me to stay home and babysit her kids. And so I walked my brother, the one that's right after me. He was going to junior high. He went to the school next door. And my good buddy of mine, he lived next door. So I took my brother out, and I told my buddy, hey, please walk my brother to school. Walk my brother to school, and I'll catch up. I went back to the house, and I kicked the door down. And I said, the reason why she didn't want me to go to school, she said if I went to school, I couldn't take my backpack because she bought me the backpack. So once my brother took off and they weren't anywhere near the apartment, I went back and I kicked the door down. I grabbed the backpack and I said, you didn't buy me this backpack. My friend gave it to me. I grabbed the backpack and went to school. And I had multiple of those encounters, those events where it's like, oh, you're only doing this because of this. You're only doing that because of this. And then it got to the point where, now we're a lot older and I'm out of the house, and, someone calls CPS on my mom because of whatever case is going on. I get the fucking blame for it. And I recently spoke to one of my brothers, and I'm like, dude, we have to put the timelines together, bro. And I said it on the podcast. My brother came on the podcast before. My baby's mom did me dirty with one of my brothers. But, him and I are cool. We spoke on the phone just the other day, I think on Thursday. And I told him, dude, put the timeline together, bro. Around that time, homegirl was trying to be cool with our mom. Why? Because of you. Mm-hmm. So she went and told her whatever the fuck she wanted to tell her. That's where our mother got the idea that I was the one who was calling CPS. In fact, a few years ago, we're talking maybe 7, 8 years ago, one of our cousins called again. This is 7 years ago. One of our cousins called CPS on my mother, and I went off on that cousin. What the fuck did you do that for? She's gonna fucking think I did it. Are you fucking serious? Oh, I went off on my cousin. And I'm like, dude, don't ever do that again. Don't ever fucking do that again. So, at one point, the CPS worker went and told some of my brothers, hey, your brother never called CPS. And then when I asked for an apology, they told me, fuck your apology. I'm like, wow, okay. All right.
Damn.
Cool. Yeah. So, again, like, I live with the mother of my kids, and she always accused me of cheating when it was her out there and cheating. I had to quit my jobs because there was girls there. I had to quit going to college because there was girls there. I'm like, oh my God, you gotta be fucking kidding me, man. So, it's not just one or two events. It's just been years and years and years. I just, it's like somebody gets a text message from a random phone number talking shit. It was fucking Andy. Andy did it. But I still have a text message from 2017 where I never blamed anybody. Someone started texting me, calling my wife names and shit. I never blamed anybody. I moved out on my own with my wife in full custody of my kids. CPS came to my house. I never blamed anybody. So till this day, yes, I get defensive. I get very defensive when it comes down to, oh, Andy did this or Andy did that. Because my whole childhood and half of my adult life is always Andy, 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 Andy. But, before people accuse...
Wait, okay.
What happened?
You froze for a second, but it's good now. Sorry about that.
So I was just saying, that it's always like I do fight with, I do struggle with getting defensive, because and for like all my life is Andy, 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 Andy. Like I said, till this day, my wife, I don't know what the hell we were talking about. It could have been about fucking food, I think it was. It was about food. You're very picky. And I'm like, no, I'm not picky. I just don't want to eat pizza every fucking Friday. Not that we do, but I'm not fucking 19 years old where I can digest pizza like nothing, So, so I do struggle with that. Even my boss recently, I was like, hey man, these people are complaining about this, about that. Oh, well, they told me that nothing's wrong. And I'm like, nah, you better go back in there and talk to them again, because I don't like to look like a liar. Again,
I understand that
I
one.
struggle with it. I struggle. And it's not something I can just turn off. I wish I could. But when I call certain individuals and nothing good comes from saying hi, it's like, it's the same, fuck this shit, man. Oh, Andy did this. Or Andy called and he said this. Andy called and he said that, when it wasn't even the case. The one that I don't understand why I can't talk about people, but when people talk about me, it's okay.
Yeah, the double-edged sword, that is one that always gets me too, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, what? And then the rage just starts building.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay.
I just like, my whole life I was being interrogated, so it's like, nah, man, nah, I'm not doing this shit. Every time I come across these individuals, all you guys do is fucking bring stress in my life. I recently told somebody, man, hey, I went 10 years without talking to you. I can go another 10, because I'm setting my boundaries. I don't need this fucking stress in my life. I don't. I've tried. I give up. If people that continue to accuse me of shit won't see that I actually tried, then you know what? Then fuck off. Is what it is. Like my brother that I talked to on Thursday. He said it. You and I did you dirty bad. But you and I have squashed that bullshit. You and I we get along. Let me know when your kids perform and I'm going to come see them. And we're cool. And if other people can't see that I'm not the same person I was back in 2004. Because, I was a piece of shit person. I did friends dirty. I ripped people off. I didn't pay them back. But when it came to doing things that would impact other people's lives, that I'm getting accused for, that's where I'm like, fuck that shit. So I struggle big time with getting defensive, and I can't turn it off. I cannot turn it off.
It's definitely something that I've struggled with too. Emotional regulation, that is, especially with that, I've had to use so many DBT skills. I remember one time one of my friends came up to me, and I can tell he was upset with me. This is when I used to live with my old roommate. And I couldn't understand why he was upset. And he's like, I'm really upset with something that you actually didn't do. And automatically, I'm like, excuse me, I'm like the nicest, most caring person. Like, how dare you accuse me of like doing something like bad or wrong? But thanks to him, I've learned a little bit, and I just sat there and I'm just like, explain. And he's just like, oh, she's trying. And then he explained it. And I'm just like, I am pissed, but I understand. But I'm going to go in the bathroom and scream for 5 minutes and then come back.
You know, what pissed me off the most is that I get compared to, I mean, I'm going to say it, I get compared to my mother, right? But when I'm trying to explain to people my actions, or when I'm trying to explain myself, and they're cutting me off and going, yeah, okay, like pretty much saying, okay, pal, okay, wait, how
That's
can you,
so dismissive.
how can you, thank you, dismissive. How can you sit there and compare me to my mother when you're doing the same exact thing? Don't be a fucking hypocrite. So yeah, no, and it's like one day, because I was cool with my mom and I was going and visiting her, and then two of my brothers were there. We were hanging out, we are talking shit. Brothers being brothers, boys being boys, and I made a fucking joke. And I remember, I got a phone call from my mother. Oh, really? You fucking said this? You fucking said? I was joking. It was a joke. Yeah, okay. It was a fucking joke. Why is it that the other two of my brothers can understand that it was a joke? But you know what? Like I said, I'm done. I'm done explaining myself. I'm done. Because, and like I said, the very dismissive part. That's when I get even more defensive, because the motherfucker, I'm trying to speak, and you're yeah, okay, dude. Don't compare me to my mother when you're doing the same exact thing.
I've just started calling that kind of stuff rage baiting, and I realize I'm like, you're trying to make me rageful. So I've learned whenever I now realize or what something is rage baiting, I'm just like, hands up, walk away. I'm not dealing with rage bait.
And that's what my rage bait, my walking away moment was, because it was on the phone. So I pretty much said, okay, you know what, dude? I went 10 years without talking to you. I'll go another 10. I don't need the stress. I don't.
Yep.
I don't, because at the end of the day, my kids come first. My wife comes first. I don't have time for, if I have to sit there and explain multiple times, if I have to continue to explain my actions, what's the point? I'm done. I know this is the one thing I recently said. I thought about it. I was thinking about it the other day. Yes, in 2004 through like 2009, I was a piece of shit individual. Meaning I didn't give a fuck. I did friends dirty. I fucking pretended to be a landlord one day and took people's money as a first down payment. Like that was their deposit. Yeah. I was there. I was fucked up. I took their money. I pretended to be a landlord. I took their money, and, because I had to survive. And a car that I didn't finish paying off. I kept on borrowing money from a friend, and the nicest guy kept on letting me borrow money. And so that's what I mean by a piece of shit individual. I did shady shit. And in 2010, I hit rock bottom, and I had to fucking grow the fuck up. I grow the fuck up. So if you still believe that I'm the guy from 2004 to 2009, then, and if you still believe that I'm that guy, I did all this shady shit. Shady shit happened to me. Karma bit me in the ass. All these bad things that I did from 2004 to 2009, karma bit me in the ass. One person actually went to the police and said, hey, this guy took money from me. And because my mugshot was in the system, they found me. Ooh. Oh, yeah, they found me. And so I was about to go to jail. And we ended up, if the guy said, if they just give him my money back, well, luckily we had it, so we gave him his money back. So again, bad things happen to bad people, right? I grew up in 2010 and pushing 30. I finally grew up, and my life has been nothing but a blessing ever since. I went from being homeless to having a house. I went from not having a car and walking everywhere to driving a 2022 Camry. Mm-hmm. I went from having, nice. I went from having, a spouse that cheated on me multiple times to someone who I'm sometimes get annoyed with her because she loves me so much. Woman, give me my space. But she loves me. She adores me. I don't know why. She tolerates with my fucking triggers. And, again, like, my life has been nothing but a blessing. I went from not seeing my kids to full custody. So if karma can see that I'm a good person, why can't the rest of society see that I'm a good person? Like I
one thing that I have read about, and that exact topic is that people from the past will see you as your past self because they either want to see you in that light because it benefited them, or they have just not been around you long enough to see the new light.
Exactly. Exactly. Like one year, my sister came over for Christmas, and I know I've said it multiple times. Sorry, regular listeners. She came over, and she had our grandma passed away that weekend that she was here. I get home from work, and my sister's arguing with one of my little brothers and my mom, going back and forth. My sister got so pissed off, she hung up the phone and she started pounding Mike's lemonades. I'm like, fuck, she is gonna get fucking wasted. And I'm, my brother and I, one of my other brothers, it's sad. I mean, I said it before. I'm on train tracks here. The brothers that I have that are in the East Coast or far away from me are the ones that I get along with better. The ones that are at arm's reach are like causing me stress. So one of my brothers and myself were calming down my sister, and I'm, Mija, it's okay. It is what it is. Don't let it bother you. Don't trip. We're here to have a good time. It's Christmas. Your kids are here. Your kids are seeing you act like this. Relax, calm down. The next morning, I went to work, and she gets up and she sees my wife, and she apologized to my wife for her actions, for getting drunk, and but my wife gets it. She knows the background, our background. So my wife gets it, and she goes, no, don't worry about it. And my sister told my wife, like, wow, the old Andy would have driven over there and punched those kids in the face. And my wife responded with, that Andy you guys all talk about, I haven't seen him. So why, I still get kicked on for shit that I did in the past. I still get shit on for things I did in the past. It's like, we're grown. If like my brother told me, my brother that he's back and forth in the East Coast. He's the one that told me, he's like, every time I spoke, because he was raised by my grandmother, and he recently he told me multiple times, but he's like, every time I called grandma when I was working or whatever, I wasn't home, I would call grandma, and she would always say, oh, Andy's in jail. And again, oh, Andy's in jail. Again, oh, Andy's in jail. Again, oh, Andy is, homeless. Oh, and all this bullshit. So he told me, he asked me, think about it, Andy. If you were the same person you were back then, when's the last time you stepped foot in a jail cell? I'm like, fuck, it's been almost 20 years. I have not stepped foot into a jail cell. And he said, there you go, man. There you go, dude. Like, it's funny because I called him one day to vent about something that happened. I called him on a Monday. I called him on a Tuesday. I called him on a Wednesday. This is the same week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it was just to vent. It was just to vent about family. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to vent about family. Thursday, I called him about a different topic, but we were talking. On Friday, he calls me and he says, you know what, bro? Let's end this week with a bang. I'm like, what's up, dude? He goes, I had a fucking great night. I had a great sleep. I slept great this night. Like, I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with what's up? He goes, I blame you. Because the topic was blame Andy for everything. So he's like, you know what? I blame you that I had a great night's sleep. I'm like, a fucking guy. So that's what I'm saying. It's like my brothers that are at the East Coast and back and forth are the ones that are, I wish they were here. And the ones that are at arm's reach, it's like, come on, man. Like, you guys are at arm's reach. I should be able to hold you guys, hang out with you guys more than the ones that are out there are the ones that are the ones reaching out to me for me more. And how are you doing, man? And this and that. And it's like, so, oh my God. Enough about me. Let's go back to you.
It's okay. It's good to learn about you, though. I do like it.
You brought triggers. You brought therapy. So I was like, this is my podcast. My podcast is therapy. So let me vent. But yeah, the last thing you said,
I will say one thing that you did bring up, though, reminded me of something that I did hear. It takes people 2 years of constant change behavior for them to change their mindset about you. So maybe since it's been 3 years, and they might start seeing that there's actual change, which would be fantastic.
I mean, well, let's hope. Let me see here, one of these. Let's see who hears you. Okay, so you said you went to. Okay, I think the last thing we talked about was the we finished. I think we finished with your biological parents. Do you want to start talking about your adopted parents or the adopted family?
Yeah, They're very interesting. They have their own types of emotional dysregulation. My mother is very emotionally immature, same with my father. So they pretty much used me as a way to make themselves feel better. I was adopted into the family, and they realized very, 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 very quickly that there were a lot of things wrong with me, or so they perceived. Some of it was wrong, some of it was not. Um, I remember my mom telling me a story of one time we had just gotten out of the car, and this is before I moved to Colorado, so it was very, very, very hot. And I kind of ran because I'm late diagnosed, self-diagnosed autistic, and I decided to run and she screamed at me. And what I did was I plopped my butt down on that asphalt, which was, it was like 115 degrees outside. So the asphalt was hot
Oh,
and I
shit.
didn't move. And so when she picked me up, I had burns and she's like, this is not normal response for a child. And so they started taking me out and trying to find me a specialist because that's a normal thing to do. They did see things that were wrong because I did have a lot of issues. So they wanted to get me help. What they started realizing though is that normal doctors didn't like my mom because they realized she was emotionally immature. So when they started saying, oh, you can't get emotionally dysregulated when your 2 year old loses her shit, because they started realizing I had different types of special needs. I went to a doctor and they found out that I have a 3 year age delay. So my mental age is like 3 years younger than what I am. I was diagnosed ADHD, and then they found out that I was diagnosed PTSD. And this was all within like ages of 5.
And the PTSD was from what? Just from the 2 years of living with your biological parents?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had signs of PTSD, and that is when they tried to go get me help. And somehow they got to the Evergreen Attachment Center in Colorado. That is where I met Neil. And they believe that they target adopted children, especially adopted children from overseas. So we had a lot of Russian kids, a lot of Chinese kids, a lot of all these different types that were from out of the country coming in. And one of the reasons that they liked me was because I came from underprivileged family. So they were able to be like, oh, her parents burned her with cigarettes. They are probably part of a satanic cult, which means she's probably part of satanic cult. This is where it starts getting different between AD and reactive attachment disorder, which reactive attachment disorder is an actual disorder in the DSM-5 or DSM. I don't know if it's exactly 5, but a lot of psychologists and therapists are starting to state that it's just PTSD. You put them in a healthy environment, and they will start to get rid of those symptoms, which is pretty much they don't seek out comfort from adults, and they don't like being comforted from other people, which are the two things for reactive attachment disorder. What this attachment center did is they're like, if they have good behavior, they are satanic cults. The children, if they don't make eye contact, they're part of this, which I was undiagnosed autistic at that time and I didn't like eye contact, and just all of these different weird things. And they're like, yep, this child is a demon. So what we're pretty much going to do is if we're going to traumatize her. It's called disturb the disturbed. So they believe that I was disturbed. So the only way to help me was just disturb me more, which that makes no sense, but apparently it did to them. And so it is a 2-week intensive. I only remember 2 sessions before I fully disassociated. And it's belittlement, it's screaming, it's yelling. The kids will hear predictions that they're going to kill, that they're going to become mass murderers, that their family will leave them if they don't work on themselves. And these children are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 when they start this stuff. And it was just once my parents found Neil, which Neil is, and Nancy Thomas, who is the star of the Nancy Thomas parenting technique, they are unequivocally on the mother side. The mother is God. The mother is what they call wonderful mothers. You do not talk anything against the mother. And if you speak against the mother's parenting techniques, you are to be immediately cut out of that family group dynamic. Another reason why it's really close to cults. You get isolated. You cut off anyone that doesn't agree with it. And that's why a lot of my family eventually fell in line, because if you put a child through trauma, they're going to start not liking the person giving the man of the trauma, which was my mother. I was very hostile towards my mother. Yep.
Yeah,
And
same
my
here.
mom liked to use the idea of, oh, my daughter has this disorder. What's actually happening is I'm the only one she feels safest enough around to be able to act like that. So she's lying about me abusing her, which is part of it. They'll say that these children lie about the abuse, that they exaggerate everything that's going on in order to make the mother look horrible, whether or not the mother is bad or not. And so my mom was actually really, really bad. But she's like, no, she has attachment disorder. So this disorder makes her lie about me. It makes her do all this stuff. Sorry, I can go on forever. If you want to
Oh,
interject.
you have do. But the only thing I noticed
um,
real quick, you were on a roll, and I don't want to stop you. You can't
mm,
stop moving your hands, like you're playing with
so
something.
yes, it is actually called stimming. So I'm autistic and it helps me regulate my emotions to be able to continue talking.
So like the fidget
One of the
spinners,
things that,
like the fidget
yeah,
spinners. Okay.
yep. I don't have a fidget spinner, so I'm just kind of using my little crystals that I
Yeah,
have.
no worries.
But
I just noticed
that's
that
actually,
nobody see. We're
mm,
not filming this. You're not. I'm not gonna put this on anything. That's just the audio,
mm,
so they can see what I see, and I see you like nonstop, just tossing this little crystal back and forth.
yeah, it helps keep me calm and regulated, mainly because like this is a very, very hard topic. I'm totally
Of
willing
course,
to talk about it, but it's
of course.
definitely bringing me back to like my childhood, but especially with the autism part of it. Nancy Thomas, she has a new website up, and on there, I tried to find it to read off of it, but I couldn't. She's talking about how like, oh, some people will say that these kids are not reactive attachment disorder, that they are autistic. The same techniques work. And if you know anything about autistic children, we don't like to be touched. We don't like to be held that much. We don't like eye contact. And they will use that.
Does that mean I'm autistic? Because I don't like to be held, and I don't. My wife tries to hug me, and she tries to
You
make eye contact, and I'm
you
like,
could,
I could, I guess.
but
You
that's
just
also a
diagnosed
sign
me.
of
You just diagnosed me. I'm gonna tell my wife.
it also could be a sign of just PTSD.
Okay.
Because people with PTSD also they don't like physical contact because of the stuff that has happened to them, especially if it was SA or physical abuse or other stuff. They may put up a wall up to not have physical contact so that they don't have any re-traumatizing events.
My wife actually we were so my boys are in band. You didn't know that.
Mm,
They're in band. I don't share their life on the podcast page, but they're in band. So we were talking the other day, I think it was Friday. My wife actually was sharing a story with the two other booster parents. They call us booster
mm.
parents. And she was like, "Yeah, man, I tried to give Andy a hug, and he put me in a headlock. I grabbed her and I put her in a headlock, and she's like, "Well, what the hell's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, my bad. I didn't know your intentions."
That can happen. Yeah, I've had people like come up and try and give me a hug and I'll be like boom
Oh,
and I have to stop myself and they're like, what? And I'm like, I am so sorry. Please do not randomly touch me. It is not a safe thing to do. I have too much PTSD.
wow. But yeah, continue. Go. You're educating me today.
Um, oh yes, but on the website, she was talking about like, yes, if they're autistic, you do these same techniques, which the American Association of Psychology has already like denied this practice. They're like they've rejected it fully. They say it's a fringe practice. It does not work. It's not real. Um, let's see. Just some of the things that are different. Like so, we all know with conventional attachment. So there's the reason why this is so controversial, I'll back stuff a little bit, is there is an actual therapy out there called attachment based therapy. That therapy is a very, very good therapy to have. It takes and figures out what attachment style you have and helps you become more of a secure attachment style. The reason people get really confused when I bring up attachment therapy is because of the name similarities. And I'm pretty sure that the bad guys did that on purpose so that people would not be able to distinguish attachment therapy from attachment based therapy. So, in attachment therapy, they will use physical restraints and stress as a mode of therapy. So, one of the things that they would do is they will actually, while holding the child down and restraining them, tell the child to get real mad at me, get real angry at me, scream at me. They will even have the child repeat phrases like, I want to kill you, I want to kill my mother, over and over again in a very, very angry and rageful way. They teach these children how to curse. I learned how to curse at a very young age because of this therapy. There is even a video on YouTube about Neil Feinberg, my therapist, telling a child to scream, I want to kill you, motherfucker, to the therapist. In quotes, of course, therapist in quotes. And this is supposed to bring out the inner rage that they believe that these children have towards their birth parents, but they're giving it and wrongfully mad at their new adoptive parents. And so they believe that they need to incite rage inside of the child and force this rage out by making the child enraged. This is why I fully believe I have rage issues, because I was taught to be rageful as a kid, and then I was rewarded and praised for going into an enrageful state, saying that I wanted to kill my parents, saying that I wanted to kill others, just all these horrible things that were not true. If we did not say that stuff, we were not allowed to leave the therapy room. These holding sessions could last to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. I think the longest one on record is like 14 hours long. And it's because it is meant to break the will of the child. They want complete obedience to the mother, sometimes the father, but mainly the mother, and they do anything. This has been a lot of the other professionals that have been working on this believe that it is very, very closely linked to Stockholm syndrome. They believe that a secure attachment style is a trauma bond. And if you know anything about therapy or psychology, a trauma bond is the most unhealthiest form of attachment style there is. But they believe that us children are just too demented, too fucked up, that we will never know how to love and that we'll never know how to make attachments, that this type of attachment is the only type of attachment that we could ever have, which is very, very messed up. So they will try and force that attachment between the child and the caregiver, which forms a trauma bond. One of the ways that they do this is called forced age regression. They will have the child lay in the mother's lap, and the mother will actually feed the child from a baby bottle. And I had that when I was 12 to 14. And they will talk to their teenager or child like they're a baby, look in their eyes longingly. The kids are asked to talk baby talk back to the parents. Some children, luckily I wasn't, were forced to wear diapers. And I actually do now, as an adult, randomly age regress under stress as a coping mechanism. And it has pissed people off because I will start talking like I'm younger. I will start behaving like I'm younger. My reactions will be that of like a 5, 6, 7-year-old. And people didn't understand it. And I never understood it until I learned about the forced age regression.
Yeah.
And it's sorry, yes.
I'm not a big fan when people speak to their kids like, I my babies, I my baby, when they're fucking 15 and 17 years old. Like, they're not.
And that's exactly why it's so damaging, because we were so already mentally messed up from the attachment therapy and the center, that when the parents continue this therapy, because the parents are made mini therapists without any training. They are made mini therapists. And so anything that happens inside the home under the parents' watch is now considered therapy, even if it's not. So I had no friends growing up at that time because I would treat them like I treated my mother, because I was taught that that's a healthy bond. So I would glomp onto other people and I would make them my parental role, which is one of the reasons why. And before I go into this, I am not hating on the BDSM community. They are amazing. I am still slightly a part of it, but it's how I got into it. And I found very unhealthy DOMs because I thought I was only supposed to be age regressed forever. I never thought, it's like someone took a cap and put a cap on all of my thought processes. I had no critical thinking abilities. We were not allowed to have critical thinking, despite the fact that they wanted us to critically think. You never were. So I just found other people who would treat me like that. And a lot of the times the people who are like that were very, very unhealthy people who just wanted someone in their life to make them feel better and not actually see them as a person. I actually believe I have something called OSDD, which is other specified dissociative identity disorder, because I have my animal side. I actually would completely change a mentality into a cat so I could handle the trauma that was happening. Because if I was not me, then I wasn't being hurt. And that continued on for years. I found so many unhealthy guys who would promise to take care of me and love me and be there for me and teach me. But all it was doing was reinforcing everything that happened in my childhood, because they realized, oh, you don't know boundaries. You don't know any of this. You are so willing and so desperate for someone to love you that you will glomp onto anyone. And I did. It took me years to be able to get out of it. It's actually one of the reasons why I believe that I was so easily sucked into Scientology. I met someone, and through a kink website, which I'm not going to name, and we bonded almost immediately. And within 2 weeks, he had a plane ticket for me to come out to California. And I moved in with him. He had lied about his age. He had lied about so many things. And when I realized it, I'm just like, well, I'm already here and fucked, so I'm not going to say anything. Found out about a week later that he was a Scientologist. I found out that they were against therapy. And in my mind, attachment therapy that I went through was the only type of therapy there was. So I was like, yeah, something that's against therapy. We can like bring them down and like bring around to like a more healthy environment for people. I really don't really have too much to say on Scientology. It's a normal organized religion that has, I think all organized religions are cults in a way. That's my personal belief. I have my own issues. I don't want to hate on anyone. But they definitely would take the isolation up to a really bad degree. We had forced labor pretty much that we had to go through. There are so many other things that happened that connected to the attachment therapy that I was like, oh, this is normal. This is just how life is. I never realized the difference of how different that was from the real world. When I finally left my ex-fiance about 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, it was a culture shock coming into the real world. I was not prepared for anything. I would start so many fights because I expected everyone to run off of these roles and programs that I did and that all these other people did, that when I came into the real world and I'd be like, hey, how dare you step out of line, get back in your place, they would look at me and be like, no. And I'm like, what? One, I hate you. And two, I want that. How do I get that? Like, I want that. No.
Yeah.
Like, how do I obtain that? And it took 3 years of intently delving into psychology for me to understand what Harry had done to me. I believe he is a sociopath. And I say that not just like willy-nilly. He told me about a story about when he was younger and getting diagnosed, and that they were trying to diagnose him with ASPD and some other things, that he was able to manipulate the situation and get them to believe that he wasn't one, even though he took pride in being one. He also later to me expressed that he likes that he has narcissistic personality disorder and that he believed it saved him, which I'm like, bro, okay, good. But that's also very symptomatic of NPD, by the way. And so I just finally pieced it all together. It started from TikTok, actually. One of the reasons why I'm like, don't get rid of TikTok. I know there's a lot of bad stuff on there, but if it wasn't for TikTok algorithm, like literally throwing psychology into my face, I never would have gotten out of anything. I never would have learned anything about this. Because Harry just thought, oh, she's going to be watching cutesy little videos. Had no idea that my algorithm was purely psychology, mental health, human behavior. And I'm just like, oh, but Harry does this. And then I would start trying things. I would start setting boundaries with him. And he'd be like, boundaries don't exist. You do know that, right? And then I would call him out on gaslighting. And he's like, gaslighting isn't a thing. Where are you getting all this from? Like, who's telling you this? Where are you getting this weird information from? And I'm just like, but you literally said this yesterday. He's like, no, I did it. I'm like, and I would start catching on to these little things. And then one day, actually, it was my birthday. I was watching the Johnny Depp trial. And there was something that he was talking about, how he said that Amber threw something at his hand and it cut his finger. And trigger warning for anyone, this is a heavy topic. It is the reason why I got out of all this. Is I remembered a memory that happened between me and Harry. I forgot exactly what I did, but I think I commented something online trying to defend him, and it ended up causing a really big mess. And he was like, you purposely did that. You were trying to betray me. and he started talking about the Yakuza. He is obsessed with the Yakuza. He fucking loves them. And he started talking about how they would respect their bosses by removing a body part to show their loyalty and apologize for their behaviors. He started saying that the only way that he would ever love me again or ever forgive me for what I have done is if I tried to remove a body part.
The fuck?
And I was willing to do so. I set everything up, and he came out, and when he realized that I was actually willing and doing the action to do so, he pushed me out of the way, goes, "How dare you do this without thinking of something to tell the doctors when we go to get your finger reattached?"
It was his idea.
And then turn around and walk.
It was his idea.
Yeah. He wanted me. Yeah. And then I remembered that, and a flood of emotions came over me, and I'm just like, okay, well, it doesn't matter if I don't understand what happened. I know I would never put someone through that much fear. And if I would never do that to someone I love, then that means that they don't love me. And I did everything I could to quietly grab my stuff. Luckily, I had a job at that time, so it was a night job. And I was able to hide my bag in there. And that is what started me on my 3 years of self-healing, 3 years of couch hopping, homelessness for a little bit, and really having to figure out what was wrong with me, figure out my triggers, figure out what my childhood had done to me and how much I didn't know about the world. The relationships that I did mess up, even though I know that there were a lot of relationships that I got into that were strictly abusive and they were the abuser, there were other relationships that I got into where things would happen. And since I didn't understand the world, I would attack them. And then they'd be like, "What the hell? This is normal." And I'm like, "No, it's not. Why are you lying to me?"
Right.
And then they didn't like being called a liar. And so our friendship or relationship would quickly deteriorate. And I'm sitting here going, "What the hell are you talking about? This is literally the only reality that ever existed." And now more recently, I'm like, "Oh, okay. So I was wrong on that. I was wrong on this. I was wrong on a lot of these things." And it's hard because I can look back at all of my relationships and be like, I know where I went wrong now. I know how I messed up, but I also know that no matter how much healing I do on myself, they will not want to heal themselves. And so it's like, it's also knowing that they had their own part and they're the ones who never wanted to heal. They're the ones who wanted to stay in that cycle. And I'm the one who is always trying to be like, "No, here's this psychology fact. Let's get better. Let's improve." Like, and they hated that I would try and challenge them, that I would try and help them be like, "I see where your issues are and I don't hate you for it, but I also know that this skill will help you with that." And they would be like, "Oh, so you just think that I'm worthless?" And I'm like, "Where the hell did you get that from? Like, I'm actually trying to like strengthen you." He's like, "Oh, so you think I'm weak?" And it's all these like twist around things that no matter how much of this kind-hearted thing that I would try and do, I always got twisted into some weird thing that I was never trying to do.
Right. Wow. Well,
That was a long one.
no worries. No worries. We got all the time in the world. So I don't know. I don't think you touched on what it was like being raised in a foster home. I know you said that they used it to their advantage at one point. I don't think you touched on.
So that'd be not technically foster care. That is called respite care. So respite care is something that the parents send the children to pretty much when they're done being parents. They're done being stressed out because parents are meant to do attachment therapy in home 24/7. So it doesn't matter what area or what role in attachment therapy you are playing, you are getting drained. Because to my mom, she was trying to therapeutize this evil and this rage out of me. And in my mind, I'm like, "You're just constantly hurting me and I want nothing to do with you. Don't touch me. Don't come near me. Just leave me alone." And she's like, "Oh, well, healthy family needs to be together. So I'm going to force you to be with us." And I'm just like, "I hate you." And they're like, "See, it's just her disorder getting bad again." And I remember one time, I think I was like 13 or 14. I got really, really mad at my mom. And I was like, "Well, you know what? I don't have to listen to you because you're not my real mom."
Oh.
And she decided to hit me over that. We were in the car and her hand just bam, back hit me. And it was one of the first, not the first time she got physical or intimidating with me, but the first time she did it with that much force. And I still to this day never apologized because I never even saw her as my mother. Like, I realized that the only reason I saw her as a parental figure was because I was trauma bonded to her, because I was forced to have that connection. I was forced to see her as my mother. But being no contact with her for like almost 2 years has drastically improved my life. I have this weird fog that I was in. I've been able to step out of, and I'm able to like actually find myself. Because I think one of the things with attachment therapy, even though they don't really state it, they don't want you to have your individualized self. You are not allowed to be yourself, because if you are an individual and you see yourself as whole, then you are not capable of being that supply for someone else. You're not able to give yourself up. You have those boundaries. So even though they're like, you have to learn boundaries, my mom was like, but not that type of boundary. You better not put a boundary up against me. Oh, if I want to hug you, I'm going to hug you because this is about me, not you.
Right.
So it was very, very hard to find any form of familial connection with her.
I saw one of your videos.
I hope that answered the question.
No, you're good.
Sorry,
it's just,
go ahead.
It's just you getting stuff off your chest. I know I saw a video you recently posted when you were 17 years old. You said you finally had the strength to call the police. How did that? What led to you having to call the police?
So I don't really remember what exactly happened for me to call them, but I do know the moment that I got to school, I was hysterically crying. I think my mom like had intimidated me again, like, because she would intimidate me to this point where I'd be crouched in a corner just crying. And she's like, oh, you think I'm scary? I'm not scary. I can be even scarier to prove to you what scary is. And I just kind of got done with it. And I went to school and I started crying, being like, my mom's a really scary, really mean person. And they called the cops because, for whatever reason. And I think they talked to my parents. And my mom was like, oh no, she has all these mental disorders. We actually love her. We take care of her. We put her through all these therapies and stuff like that. And so when I got pulled into the counselor's office, he looked at me with utter disgust and he's like, how dare you lie about your parents like that? You are such a brat. They have done so much for you. And just went on, was giving me like death glares. Like, I feel like if he could have beat my ass, he would have. And I think that was one of the first times that I really, really realized that I'm like, there is no safe place for me in this world. I honestly think now that he is part of the cult, because like, I don't think any person would just so readily believe one side of a story unless they really, really just didn't care about the child.
Right.
And a few months after that, I think literally 2 months after that, my parents started talking to me about, do you want to go to this like horse camp that will like, it's just like a fun little place where you can go and hang out with other kids. I was like, no, I don't want to go anywhere else. And then they decided to trick me. And they're like, hey, so we're going to go to Vegas to work on our family. And I'm just like, wait, we're going to go to Vegas? Like, you guys, you evangelical Presbyterian Christians who are so on the extreme side that where you won't even let me wear black because you think it's related to the devil, you're going to take me to a weekend in Vegas? Like, it just blew my mind because my parents are extreme radicals, like extreme radicals. And I'm just like, this is the first time you guys have ever been chill or cool. Like, I was like, you guys want to connect with me. You get me. You're taking me to like Neon Light Central. And so they're like, yeah, totally true. And so we hopped on a plane, got to Vegas, hopped in the car. And while we were driving past, I was like, okay, where's our hotel? They're like, oh, it's a little bit outside of Vegas, so it's cheaper. Vegas is expensive. I was like, that's logical. And then I kind of realized about a half an hour later, I'm like, all right, so where are we really going? And they're like, so you're going to a treatment center.
Oh, fuck.
And you won't be coming back until you choose to do better. And I remember at one point driving, I had my headphones in because I just didn't want to talk to them at all. We were driving by a cliff that was like just probably 100, 200, whatever foot drop. And I'm just like, I want to jump out right now. Like, I was literally planning on just like yeeting myself from the car over that cliff. So I just didn't have to deal with this. I remember when I got to Kolob, they took me through it. It showed the areas, to the grounds to my areas and my mom and dad. And when they left, my mom was like, I want a hug from you. And I'm just like, why the fuck I'm not going to hug you. I want nothing to do with you.
Right.
And After that, I was brought inside. I was strip searched, um, fully to the point of where they could see everything, which I think is not even you're allowed to do to a minor, especially for an area where like I didn't even have any charges against me or anything like that. It was just because I couldn't get along with my parents that I was there. Some drugs, some sex, but as a teenager, that's kind of, I hate to say it, that's normal for a teenager.
Right.
And so I was strip searched. We were ripped of all of our basic rights. And it started, I think, my 6 months of absolute hell, being once again forced to trying to make connections with my mom, trying to talk to her. And that is where, for the second time in my life, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I think because Heather realized how messed up my mom actually was. And she's like, oh, you're kind of just fucked up because your mom's fucked up, but she couldn't say that. And but I don't really care too much about. Sorry.
No, go finish your statement.
But one of the reasons why I don't think that Heather was on my side was because she told me straight to my face that my high school, Daniel C. Oaks, which I loved and graduated from, never wanted to hear from me again. And I was so upset because I loved that school. I loved that high school. And then when I got out of Collab, when I ran, I love to say that I escaped and I ran from there. Not many people get to say that. I eventually contacted my school, and I'm like, my principal was Mark Morgan. I was like, Mr. Morgan, I'm really sorry for anything that I did, but I love that school. Can I please come back? Like, I know you guys say that you hated me and didn't want me to come back, but I would really want this opportunity. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? We've been waiting for you to come back. Like, your spot is still open for you. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. And so I was eventually able, for a short period of time, I went to live with my parents again. That fell through very quickly. And then I lived with someone else, and her dad luckily was nice enough to take us to school and back.
Right.
And I was able to graduate that way. But you wanted to ask something?
You said something about what borderline disorder. What was that borderline disorder again?
So borderline personality disorder. It is a disorder that is trauma-based. It is probably one of the most painful disorders. It is emotional dysregulation. Actually, I didn't even think about looking this up because I don't want to state it wrongly, but it is a emotional dysregulation disorder based upon severe.
The reason why I'm asking,
go ahead.
While you were searching, the reason I cut you off. The reason why I ask is because, years ago, I told my grandma that I wanted to find my father. I don't know who my father was because apparently my last name's not even my last name's not even the blood flowing through my veins, and so I told my grandma I want to start looking for my father, and she told me don't hold on, and I'm like, the fuck you tell me to hold on for, lady? She sent me documents, and I got documents in the mail that stated that the way I read it was that my mom was borderline 5150. And 5150 is police code for crazy. So yeah. That's why I'm asking you.
That can definitely happen, yes. So BPD, there are 156 different subtypes of BPD. So it's very rare to meet one person that's a lot like someone else, especially when you have someone like me who's quiet BPD, where I turn all of my rage inward. And then when I can't handle it inward, then I do explode. But that can happen. BPD is very, very hard to control. And I've definitely had to go to the psych ward a few times to handle it. But luckily, since I know about it, I know about my past, I understand what causes it, which is trauma. It is a lifelong of just trauma, neglect, abuse, where it is a pattern of intense and unstable relationships with family, friends, and loved ones, a distorted and unstable self-image or sense of self. Impulsive and often dangerous behaviors such as spending sprees, unsafe sex, substance misuse, reckless driving, and binge eating. So it is something that is very, very hard to control. It's not something that once you have it, you can have it for life, but you can go into remission to where it means you don't meet all the criteria for it. It is only trauma-based. There are some genetic factors, but the genetic factors are more likely you're more sensitive, so you're more likely to be affected by the abuse to get borderline personality disorder.
And see,
there are some people who...
I've accepted that. I know that that's the issue with her, and that's why I started coming around, bringing her my kids and hanging out with her or whatever. But I get that that's what she's struggling with. I completely understand that. But the fact that the reason why I keep my distance is because, like I said earlier, a simple hello can cause me fucking stress. Like, I can just call her and check up on her and see how she's doing, and then, oh, well, he called and he said this, and he called and he said that, and he fucking said this, and he said that, and blah, blah, blah. Apparently, me saying, oh, so-and-so's baby looks just like him, dude, I mean, he can't deny that one. Even that comment, even that simple conversation bit me in the fucking ass. So that's why
That
I understand what she's
can
going
happen.
through. I understand what she's going through, but I don't put myself in the position where I'm done putting myself in the position where saying a simple hello is only going to bite me in the ass. It's
And that's one thing that I realized about some people who are unaware of, and I'm trying to word this very carefully because I don't want to add any stigma, because it's very, very easy to add stigma to this disorder. There are some individuals who still have a lot of emotional dysregulation, where they will hear something that others hear as innocent, and since in their past that innocent thing was used to probably hurt them or traumatize them, they get emotionally dysregulated and they react. It's a very reactive based disorder. And that's one thing that I've had to learn to calm down and be like, I've learned to ask questions. That has been my lifesaver, is when someone does something or says something that causes me to get really unstable inside. I'll be like, okay, what did you mean by that? I need more information, because I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to be bitchy. I'm actually a very loving person, but right now I am triggered. So explain to me what you mean by that. And I've had to learn to trust other people when they tell me, oh, I meant this, not this. And it's like, okay, I'm going to believe that. I'm going to see patterns off of this. And now if this happens again or something, go off of that. It has taken painstaking 24/7 work, DBT skills, finding groups for other survivors that are wanting to get healthy, and listening to them, allowing them to call me out, which is sometimes so hard when I'll put something up and they'll be like, yeah, so you're Delulu right now and you need to go do some DBT skills. I'll be like, why can't you just accept my reality?
and there you go, right there. You get defensive, right? Because you don't want to be told that you have this disorder, because it you know you have it, and it pisses you off when you hear other people say it, right?
I will still definitely work on it. I'll go do the DBT skills. I'll calm down. I will do it. And then usually once it's done, I'm like, okay, I see what you're talking
Okay.
about. And
Well,
that's one thing that I've realized a lot with it, is once they get back to baseline, they're actually very sane and rational.
well,
It's just,
when you have an individual that doesn't get there, and let's go back to one of my little brothers. He was 15 years old. I guess she has slapped him. That's what he said. You know, now I'm saying that now because of he lived with me for about a year, and now it's like, well, that's what he says. He came over, he actually slapped me, and blah 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 blah. The next day, we get a phone call from the police saying that that we need to take him to the police station because he's, we're holding him in. He's a minor and he belongs to his mom, right? So I had a conversation with him before my wife. I was at work, so I couldn't take him. So I had a conversation with him. I'm like, dude, just relax, bro. Just be patient with her. Just, you'll be fine. Sadly, she's borderline 5150. So you have to kind of be patient. So homeboy goes and tells her what I said. And then now I'm getting the angry phone calls, and you piece of shit, why the fuck did you say that? And blah, 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 this, and that. And oh my God.
see, it's like, it's funny because like I can understand I understand her reaction, but I also understand how unhealthy it is, mainly because I've worked so hard. One thing that I've also realized is you can say everything you want to say, but if you say it in a healthy way, it goes across better. Like, she definitely could have been like, hey, I felt very dysregulated when I heard this. Can I understand why you said this so I can understand you more? There's so many better ways, and that's what I'm learning to do that.
I've been saying for a long time, the key to a successful life from anyone, marriages, family, friends, is communication. And, instead of taking the fact, hey, I was trying to make him understand where he's not driving you crazy, where you don't have to slap him anymore, trying to be pretty much, sympathize with her, sympathize with her by saying, hey, you know what? She's not she has a mind of a 15-year-old. You know, you have to think of it like that. And it took me a while to understand that too, because I was just recently told, hey, remember, she's technically not a mom. She's more of a sister, if you think about it. So that was kind of the same. That was the advice that was given to me. So that was the same, without even thinking about it. That was the same advice I was trying to give this individual fucking 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Dude, she's technically a 15-year-old. You have patience. Yeah, that fucking shit bit me in the ass. I'm like, fucking A, man. All
And
right.
that's something that even I've felt. No, you are good. The more therapy I go through, either through a therapist or self-help workbooks, I've realized that I was really stuck in I don't want to say a younger mindset, because I also don't want to like make younger people like seem bad, but I didn't understand certain things. Like I didn't understand why boundaries were healthy. And I realized that sometimes younger children may do that. Like you put a boundary up with them and they're like, "Why don't you love me?"
Yeah.
And I didn't
Yeah.
understand that. And now that I'm starting to understand it, I'm starting to see why some people call people children when they're full grown adults. I'm like, oh, it's because of the emotional dysregulation.
You're right.
They haven't figured out how to actually control their emotions. And even recently for me, I have had to control my emotions. Like about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I lost it on my roommate because I felt like I wasn't getting help cleaning, even though I probably was. I just didn't realize it. And I lost it on him. And he did great. He left, calmed down, then came back and we talked. And then just yesterday, I felt dysregulated again. I'm like, you know what? I can't do it. I can't yell at him again because I don't want to lose this friendship. So I messaged him like, I am very dysregulated right now. I feel like I need help on cleaning. I'm not blaming anyone, but oh my God, this is too much. And he's just like, perfect. I'll help you when we get back. And I'm just like, wait, what? You actually
Communication.
listened?
Communication.
Because I've always felt like when I said something nicely, no one would listen. So I would have to get more and more and more angry and more
Yeah.
aggressive. One thing that I didn't realize, if someone doesn't listen, they probably shouldn't be in your life in the first place. But now I'm like, oh, these friends of mine, they actually like me, they care about me. And I've been learning to become a little bit calmer and be like, hey, I'm feeling hurt because of this. Is that what you meant to do? And then they'd be like, oh my God, I didn't even think that that was how that came across. And I'm just like, oh, I'm really glad I didn't lose it on you.
Yeah. Honestly, so my wife was told years ago, like before we got married, they told her. So we went to, my lawyer told me that I need to go, if I wanted full custody of my kids, I need to take therapy. So I went to therapy, and I spoke to a counselor. He's the one that, introduced me to what my triggers were. And I know one of them was like, every time I went in there, he was like, have you forgiven your mother? And I'm, no. Have you forgiven your mother? No. Every fucking time I went in there, have you forgiven your mother? No, no. And now he saw me getting angry. Well, why not? I'm like, because my siblings are not in school. They sleep in the car. They back and forth to hotel. That she, like pretty much, I'm explaining to him, my childhood, but through the eyes of my siblings that are still underage and living with her. So he's like, so how she's treating your siblings right now is a trigger for you. And I was like, yeah, I can't, I'm seeing this shit all over again. And so ever since I told him that, he never asked me again about if I've forgiven her. But anyways, the point of the therapy was he said, hey, can you bring your wife along to some of these sessions? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So he sat her down and he told her, hey, you know what? If you really love this man, you're going to have a lot of patience because he has a lot of triggers. And so she was like, no, yeah, no, she learned some there and then. So one day I was losing my shit. I was in the garage. I was losing my shit. And she was just standing there. And no matter what I did, I tried to rage and get in her face and try to scare her off. She wouldn't budge. I even hit the garage door with my hand, and she wouldn't budge. She's like, she knows I'm going through an episode, and I need to get it off. And any normal woman would have fucking left me a long time ago.
One thing that I actually I call it getting off of my emotional roller coaster. I've tried to explain it to other people. I'm like, when I am going through it, when I am dysregulated, don't try to get in there. Don't try and get logical with me. You need to just either leave or not react to me because I am like this.
Yeah.
And if I'm like this and you're like this, nothing's going to get better. And I tried to explain that to this one guy that I was dating about, or tried to date about like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he just couldn't understand it. Like I would say something that was slightly not logical because I didn't have all the information, so I was just making conclusions. And
Right.
then he would get mad at me like that's not logical. I'm like, okay, then tell me with the logical. And then he's just like, well, it's just not logical. And I'm like, if you can't even help me, then don't say anything. Get off my roller coaster and let me regulate myself if you're not even there for me.
Right. Ay, ay, ay. What's going on in our heads?
The whole world just needs therapy. We're all traumatized. A lot of us have a lot of generational trauma, and I think everyone just needs a good dose of therapy with an actual therapist, because that's one thing that really pisses me off. Is I've actually tried to go to a few therapists, and there's actually one that I'm currently reporting to the board because he decided to drunk text me while I was his client.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there and like I was like, hey, can you like not text me while you're drunk? He's like, oh, so is this a boundary you're setting up with me? I'm like, this isn't a boundary I should need to set up with you. Like you're a professional, bro. Like it doesn't matter what friendship we may or may have not had before. You are a professional. You do not drunk text your clients while you are their therapist. Like you're supposed to be a safe place for me to go
Yeah.
to. Now I have to worry about you. And like I know some other therapists that don't understand CPTSD, they don't understand trauma to the degree that we do. I had one therapist try to have me reframe, which is seeing a situation in a more positive light to like bring around healing from it. My dad once grabbed me and threw me across the room onto my bed. And he was like, let's try and reframe that as something more positive. And I'm like, bro, I have been working for years to actually see my parents in a negative light because I was brainwashed to see them as literal gods. Like the last thing I need is to see is to figure out how my dad abusing me helped me in my life.
Right.
Like abuse doesn't help people whatsoever. And so I'm just like, I cut that person out of my life. You really have to make sure you find a therapist that aligns with your beliefs, that aligns with your values, because my parents are authoritarian. I am not. They tried to get me into a therapist that is authoritarian. Me and that therapist butted heads because she wanted me to conform. And I'm sitting here going, I have free will. I am my own body. I am my own person. I have boundaries and I will not break those boundaries. And she's like, well, your parents are your parents and you will do anything for them. And I'm just like, yes, except for break my boundaries. And
Right.
like, so you really need to find a therapist that like aligns with your beliefs. Um, and I have, luckily, I'm waiting for some money in to be like, here, therapize me. Because not, especially within the TTI and the troubled teen industry and attachment therapy, not a lot of people understand how damaging these places are because in their minds, they're like, oh, these places are to help dysregulated kids who have issues, who have problems, which we did. Like, I have done some fucked up shit in my life, but I also 100% believe that if I wasn't put through attachment therapy and if my mother wasn't in my life, I never would have gone to those levels. So we had issues, but it doesn't matter how traumatized, how unhealthy a teenager is. You do not put them through more trauma to heal the trauma that's already there. And that's what all these programs do is they call it tough love, but that's just a different word for abuse. They abuse these children out the wazoo, they mentally break them, and they say, this is the role that your parents want, and we will do anything we can to put you into that role because your parents are paying us thousands upon thousands of dollars to do so.
Right. And that's the one thing I have a conversation with my son because my son, I mean, he was what 5 when I took custody of him. I mean, I was in his life for those first 5 years, but he lived with his mom, and I still think that sometimes he struggles with some like he still remembers something of those first 5 years, and because I remember like I've said it before already that the thing that made my wife decide to win me full custody of these kids was the one day that I went to drop them off at home, and I don't remember the conversation with the mother of my kids, but I ended up bringing the kids back home with me, and he was crying. I was crying. We were both crying, and I think we were both going through the same emotion. And my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, but we get back to the house, and she was like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And I'm crying. He's crying, and the first thing that comes out of his mouth is, "My mom doesn't love me." And that's a trigger for me too, because I finally, like I said, I accepted it at 41 years old that my mom doesn't love me. And it was that was fucking painful to hear a 5-year-old say that. And my like to this day, my wife loves these kids love her more than they love me. Like if she stubs her toe on the sofa and she says ouch, they're running at me and fucking hitting me and making sure that I'm not hurting her. I'm like, what the fuck, assholes? And my son has a field trip coming up, and he asked my wife, hey, can you come with me, can you be chaperone? And he's in high school, he's a senior, and he's happy, like he's hella happy that she's coming, because the first 7 years of us having custody, she was a stay-at-home mom. She didn't work. We figured it out, and we survived 7 years. And now that she's working, she has a job where she can use that time. And she told him, yeah, I'll go, and she'll go. And he was like she was like, he's so happy. I'm like, because you remember, you're reminding him of a childhood memory when you always went with him on field trips. You always took him you were there for his awards at school, no matter the bullshit that my baby's mom was talking to you behind your back, bringing her friends over and fucking almost threatening you. You still showed up. You still were there for, like you said, you're doing it for the kids. And now the boys are at the point where, like, little by little, they're distancing themselves from their biological mother. And that's the whatever trauma that she caused in their first 5 years of life. And it's mainly him, because the other one just brushes the 15-year-old just brushes everything off. He's like, whatever. But the older one is like, I tell him, mijo, we haven't done anything dramatic for you to we haven't done anything for you to have these anger issues or whatnot. Like, I had to sit him down and talk to him. Like, dude, you're almost 18, man. This shit ain't gonna slide. As an 18-year-old and an adult, you punch a hole in the wall. If that happens to be someone's face, it's not gonna be like you're losing your phone for 5 days. You're gonna lose your freedom. So
and there are some people who will just literally see that and leave your life, not even caring about the connection.
That's what I tell him. Like, dude, you're not gonna have a very nice adulthood. You're not gonna have nice relationships. You're not gonna have if you continue, like, find out what's causing you to have this anger, and he doesn't even know it. He doesn't know it. It's just, so I'm looking into getting him.
I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah, so I'm looking
when you're angry and you don't even know why.
Exactly. So I'm thinking of I've been looking into what therapy I can get him in, because I had him in therapy before, but he was a little kid. It's like, that's nothing. Now that he's older, I'm thinking I need to get him into someone that understands and see if we can figure out where that anger is coming from. But at the end of the day, he's not angry at me or my wife. It's coming from somewhere else. I say it that I told people, and I feel that I think in the way I wanted my mother to love me. I think in a way, even though he has a loving mom here at home, I feel that he still wants his mother to be a mother. And she proves him wrong every time. So I feel like that's where his anger is coming from, because what else? What else can I think of? We've given them everything they need. They don't go without. They have food, they have clothing, they have friends, they have high school, they're going to high school. I hate, Dad, can we ditch school today? Fuck no, you're not. Hells no, you're not. Nope, because I didn't go to school. So I make sure that my sister-in-laws are like, hey, they have good grades. Can they ditch one day to go to Knott's Berry Farm? Nope. No. That's what the weeks off, spring break, summer break, Christmas break, that's what those are for. Not during the school year. And so, I mean, they have everything that they need, that they need, because at one point I told them I couldn't afford it. Now I just tell them, have you earned it? I told myself one day, I'm making that promise to myself that I'm never going to tell my kids I can't afford it. Now I ask them if they've earned it. So, I know that I tell my wife sometimes, fuck, I feel like maybe I ruin my kids by having custody of them, because they're seeing my triggers or they see my tantrums and shit. And she's like, don't blame yourself, because it's something deeper than that. He is, because it's only one of them. It's not both of them, He obviously did live with her for the first 5 years of his life. So he is fighting something. So, I mean, he hasn't had an episode in a couple of weeks. So we're counting our blessings. So anything else? I mean,
definitely
go for it.
There is something that you said that reminded me of when I was a kid. I think I was like 5, 6, or 7, and I wrote a letter to Santa, and it was asking him when my parents would love me.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that was it. I remember my mom She found it and she handed it to me. And she acted like it was the funniest, silliest thing on the planet. Like, oh my God, you thought that we didn't love you. And I'm just like, girl, this is traumatizing. I literally don't think you love me.
Yeah.
But,
Oh man, that's crazy.
but yeah.
Did you get in? Did you talk about the difference between the RAD and the AD? I know that's something I've written down.
Lots. No, you are good. And that actually is probably a good thing to talk about, especially if there's any confusion between, because people are very, very, can get, where is it? Okay, so reactive attachment disorder is a recognized diagnosis which is defined in the Diagnosis and Statistic Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, blah, 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 as an uncommon disorder which is expressed in reaction to extreme neglect or abuse. There are only two qualifications to have reactive attachment disorder, and that is the child rarely or minimally seeks comfort when distressed, or the child rarely or minimally responds to comfort when distressed. Those are the only two things that qualify you for reactive attachment disorder. In other words, children with RAD have experienced extreme social and emotional conditions and have become much more withdrawn than we would expect from children their age. So now coming up to attachment disorder. So Foster Cline, the Colorado psychiatrist who first popularized attachment therapy in the 1980s, was also credited with inventing attachment disorder, an unrecognized diagnosis which nearly exclusively by attachment therapists. A decade of vigorous marketing of this fad diagnosis to parents and child welfare workers has positioned it as a disorder dreaded by adoptive foster parents, but also well-known path to eligibility for special needs substitutions. Now, I am going to read off the signs of attachment disorder that a child could have. Another thing to note is that you remember the gay conversion therapy camps that used to pop up in like the 1960s, 1980s? Those individuals were diagnosed with something called same-sex attachment disorder, and a lot of the symptoms that they would show are in this list. You can laugh at some of them. So signs of attachment disorder are superficially engaging and charming, lacking of eye contact on parents' term, eye contact when lying or angry, empty-eyed, a darkness behind the eyes when raging, good behavior, which is interpreted as the child stalking his prey, views relationships as threatening or not worth the effort, resists comfort, resists being held, destructive to self, others, or material things, accident prone, cruelty to animals, which actually, that is one that I do want to talk about. I do not believe I would have been cruel to any of my animals if I didn't go through attachment therapy. There was one time, I hate this memory so much because I remember in my mind that I literally thought that I could teach my bird how to swim. I had a bird named Frosty, loved that bird to death, and I was also a swimmer. And what I wanted was I thought I could turn Frosty into one of those birds that dived into the water and like just swim with me. The first step to doing this was teaching him how to hold his breath. And in my mind, I literally thought it's called fanciful thinking, as same thing as fanciful lying. Children be like, I didn't have a cookie, but what about that? I guess I did. Like they think that what they say can bring reality into reality. So for me, I thought that if I told my bird the instructions to holding his breath, he would be able to hold his breath. And I accidentally drowned my bird. My parents saw this as me actively being cruel towards animals and actively showing signs of these murderous traits that they warned them about, because if you don't go through attachment therapy and re-traumatize, you're going to grow up to be a mass serial killer.
Yeah.
You're going to be like a Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, dude, you beat me to the quote. Yeah, I'm a relaxed Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yep. So they took that and they ran with it. Never once did I actually want to hurt my bird. I loved that thing. And then there was another time with my dog, Petey. Nothing bad happened. I thought that he wanted to have fun because I used to jump off the deck into the snow, right? So I saw him looking down and like going forward and going back and going forward and going back. I was like, oh, you want to jump off the deck? Here you go, think. Yeah, he's a poodle, and it was a second-story deck, and even with a little bit of snow, that wasn't that. He was fine afterwards, but of course my parents were like, you're a danger, and I'm just like, what? You couldn't just tell me that doggies can't jump from that high? Like, You couldn't have been like, okay, this is scary, but let's talk about, gravity and animal bones and like how that's not okay. No, they just said, oh, you're psychotic, here, let's take you into another session, which made me more angry and more volatile. So other stuff is lying about the obvious or crazy lying. Crazy lying is also what I talked about with fantasy lying or fanciful lying, where kids think that they can speak truth into reality. So like if they're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't eat half of the cookie jar, even though they have the evidence all around them,
Yeah.
they think that they can change reality. So these people would think that fanciful lying was crazy lying. Stealing, no impulse control, intolerant of rules and authority. That can also happen if you have a PDA autistic child. Pathological demand avoidance. We see threats and demands as an actual threat to our nervous system, and our nervous system will get activated, and we will sense that demand as a fight or flight. So I've definitely, now that I learned that I'm PDA, I've had to learn how to, work with people and be like, okay, I am triggered by this demand, but I also know that I need to do it, or we figure out ways to work around it. Shallow and vain, grandiose or unrealistic fantasies. Which child doesn't want to become a princess? That's one of the ones that they had. They were like, you really think that you can become a princess?
I think you still do, because you have your little earbuds, the little cat ears.
Dude, I love these so much. They're amazing. Feeling of being unique is another symptom, which is actually something that's supposed to happen with children. You're supposed to help them feel unique and special. Yeah, but if a child feels unique, that's a sign of attachment disorder and something to like squash out. I'm gonna go down.
Listeners, she was ready. She has her Google ready, and she was ready for this.
Oh yeah, no. I have been wanting to try and get this information out there for years, because it still happens to this day. Even though the American Psychology Association has damned this and it's banned in a lot of places, Nancy Thomas is still one of the top leadings in the adoption agency areas for kids diagnosed with RAD, because they think it's pretty much the exact same thing, which it's not. And she is still out there putting all of this stuff out there. One girl, Candace Newmaker, actually died because of this stuff, and they're still stating that this is a safe practice. There's a lot going on around it, which one thing that really sucks is Nancy Thomas's daughter, Beth Thomas, was one of the first people to go through this, and due to the fact that her mom is the leading thing in this, she is now pro attachment therapy, and she pretty much a traitor to the survivors that have went through it. I think she's 1 out of 2 children who speak positively of it, and she has followed directly in her mother's footsteps, and pretty much talking about adopted children like they're animals, like they can't be trusted, that any adopted child needs to go through pretty much re-education and stuff like that. It's very damaging, and none of us side with her, none of us like her, and we are all very upset that she decided to go down this path. But yeah, there's a lot more. Oh yeah, ADHD is a symptom too if you have ADHD. And also disassociation. If you choose to disassociate, or you disassociate because of stress, that is a sign of it too. So, and that's just like going through like 3 of the 50, or like a few of the 50 different symptoms that can qualify you. Satanic rituals. They believe that all the kids are satanic. So that's another easy way, especially in the 1990s. The Satanic Panic happened. So anyone who wanted money just rode off that coattail. And we're like, yeah, so these children probably came from satanic homes. Talking about every adopted child came from satanic homes, and they need this to like get the devil out of them.
Right.
So it was definitely something very scary, because for me, I personally don't believe. And well, I believe the Christian God exists, but we're not going to go into that. But I don't even believe in this story. Like, if I don't believe in one, how can I not believe in the other, kind of thing? If I don't believe God exists, how can I believe the devil exists if they're part of the same story, kind of thing? And it just never made sense to me. So when my parents were like, oh, you don't believe in God? I was like, no. Then they're like, then you must worship the devil. And I'm like, I don't believe he exists either. And plus, he's a pretty bad dude. Like, can I go over there and not hang out with any of them? Like, please?
Yeah.
So it's like they just couldn't grasp it. But yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, I definitely came prepared.
No, yeah, you're on top
But I
of
also
it.
know it's almost 10 o'clock and I don't want to like get
No,
in the
no
way of you
worries.
getting ready for church.
No worries. Well, yeah, no, my son's already texting me, not because of church, but because the Dallas Cowboy game starts right now at 10 o'clock.
Ooh.
He's already texting me, Dad, hurry up. And I got him hooked on fantasy football, so he's in the league. And yeah,
Ooh,
he
nice.
last Thursday I was in a meeting, and my son texted me, Dad, Mom won't let me put on the game. I have Patrick Mahomes as my starting quarterback, and she won't let me put on the game. So, I know one of the questions that I always ask my guests. Most of my guests have children. You don't, so I can't ask you what you would tell your kid 15 years from now. But if you can give advice, because I do have my son. This does tell me that some of his high school friends do listen to this podcast. So if you have advice for, and you know, all teenage girls and teenage boys, the world's against them, right? So we don't know. You don't know my life. What do you didn't go through what I went and all this, bullshit, right?
Which is true. Everyone's trauma is different, but if I
Yeah.
did have to give any advice, if you feel like, and this is to the child, like if you feel like there's something wrong and you don't know how to communicate to your family or don't feel like you can, get into therapy. Learn your own triggers. Learn what emotional dysregulation is. And this is all just stating the things that I didn't know, that I wished I knew, especially because both of my family lines have extreme trauma into them. Understand trauma, get very, very trauma informed, and be willing to swallow a lot of very hard pills. Because I know that there are a few times where I needed to take at least a week to process the fact that I had found out that there were some things that I were doing that were toxic that I never thought were toxic before. So emotional dysregulation, get informed on what trauma is and how it affects you, how it affects the family, and definitely be okay with being angry, but also know that if there are family members that are wanting to get better, also have a little bit of patience. The only reason I went no contact with my family is because they continuously show these signs of not wanting to get healthy or wanting to improve.
That's what
But if there are signs
Yep.
that they're there,
Yeah.
then try and work through it, but also know that you may need to take, and especially if I ever contacted my mom again, I know I'd need to take the adult viewpoint. I would have to literally reparent my own mother. I would have to raise her as from a childlike mindset of everything is mine, no boundaries should exist. I should be the princess, which is true. Like the child should get everything. The child should not fill the parent's cup. The parents, which is why they're not like where there should be two people in a relationship, but the adults are supposed to fill each other's cups. They are not supposed to expect the child to fill the adult's cups, which is what I realized in a lot of dysfunctional families is the parents expect the child to fill the cup and not the other romantic partner, which it's the romantic partner's choice, and then they have to fill the cup of the child. And so learning that might also help a lot, because the fact I didn't know that, one thing I realized is healthy families teach that to their children. And since I was never taught it, I never knew. And now I'm terrified to have kids until I learn this, because I will not raise kids and like not know these healthy techniques. I have to know it. I'll be like, so by the time they're like in middle school, they're going to know like what manipulation is, what gaslighting is, what rage baiting is, because that's the one I am weakest against is rage baiting. Is I will lose it, especially if people accuse me of something that I didn't do. Whew, game's over.
I'm still struggling with that one. I'm still struggling with that one. Well, Jessie, thank you for, agreeing to come on. You, like I said, we just met you on Thursday. I just met you on Thursday, and I really had no idea what we were going to talk about. I took some notes, but hey, you had your facts ready, you had your computer ready, you had everything ready to go, and thank you for taking the time and coming on. It was pretty short notice, but yeah, thank you again. And Jessie, like I ended the podcast, thank you for riding with me.
And thank you so much for having me. It was such an amazing experience, and I really do hope to do it again with you or even someone else.
Anyone's welcome to come back. It's not the one and done.
Yay!
Alrighty, have a happy Sunday. Have a good week.
Thank you for listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Indie Podcast. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean.